This represents a major turning point for the Montreal Canadiens with a ton of uncertainty about the long-term winger partner for Ivan Demidov. This season for Patrik Laine represents a shift for the Habs, but with other big-name top six wingers being available in the trade market such as JJ Peterka, the Habs have a decision to make as to what the long-term future holds for our top prospects, line mates. We have to dive into Laine/Peterka, a bunch of stuff on that top six front, but it's not just that. We want to revisit an old quote from Martin St. Louis and the massive impact it will have on our young stars this year, and also an article from The Athletic outlines each team's best contract and the results for Montreal. Usual suspects, but still very, very interesting. All that coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. And just before we start, I wanted to sincerely thank you guys for helping us finally push past that 21,000 subscriber milestone. It's huge. 25K is coming soon. And hey, if you're enjoying every single day, haven't hit the button, do it right now. It's completely free. Thank you for being here. Let's start with that article at The Athletic, linked down below as always for you guys. Now, this year, 24-25 best performers relative to cap this past year, Suzuki and Evans, of course, at the 1.7 million. It's understandable why the Canadiens didn't have many bargain contracts on this list, Jesse. We know we had veterans on bigger contracts that were expiring, and now we have young guys on big contracts that they will live up to. The fact that we even see Nick Suzuki on this list, remember, Jesse, what was it, 2 years ago? A model had him as one of the worst contracts in the league. He finally grew into it and more. And Jake Evans too, Jesse. I mean, love to see these guys, but I have to imagine there might even be a few more guys making this list very soon.
Absolutely. And, just such a good look on Kent Hughes for signing Jake Evans here. For sure, this was based off the previous contract, but just a good look going forward. But for sure, talking about Nick Suzuki, your captain, when you got one of your highest deals, your highest contracts on your team as one of your best values, it just really allows for that feng shui, that flow to really make the magic happen on the rest of your lineup. And really, you got to feel like the contract situation, it's just getting better for the Habs with the Christian Dvorak kind of going there. But like for me, Nick Suzuki, it's a type of deal where he's going to get that experience. And then with that talent, right, it's kind of, you see those later on those years, the end of that deal, Josh, like for me, that's when Nick Suzuki is going to be the most dangerous. He takes care of himself. He's there for 82 games consistently, year in, year out. But like, it's kind of getting that vet experience where I think really taking him over the top to really be able to kind of lift, Lord Stanley at a certain point. Honorable mention to Samuel Montembeault, who is also getting, who's performing a great value relative to his contract as well here.
Yeah, that's a great shout as well. Of course, Monty, I mean, remember getting a third place Vezina vote for a dude making like not even $4 million a year. It's like the dude is outperforming his contract for sure. And that's one of the blessings we have. I mean, if you put Carey Price to the side, of course, that big contract, final year of it though, Dobesh and Montembeault, for their cap hit, one of the best goalie tandems in the league relative to the price we're paying. So just had to give a shout out to these guys. I'm excited about the upcoming Evans contract. I know Cayden Guhle will be joining this list very, very soon if he can stay healthy for a full season. Caufield very well could as well. And we can only hope about Juraj Slafkovsky. But speaking of him, Jesse, I mean, looking forward to Juraj Slafkovsky this upcoming season. You have to imagine that top line is sticking together, though we know Ivan's going to definitely be knocking on the door, but that's nothing but a good thing. We wanted to revisit something. Now, I saw this doing the rounds a little bit on Twitter, and did see it on Reddit as well. It's a quote that we've brought up on the show a lot about Martin St. Louis, and he mentioned this when we made the playoffs, saying, look, when he made the playoffs, that's what shifted it. And to bring this exact quote up, my first playoff run as a player took me to another level. That's what I love about the playoffs, especially as a young guy. It makes you go to another level. I came back the next year, started the season at that level. I raised the bar. Now, we said this in a segment with Elliot Friedman right around the playoffs. And at the time, and even now, Jesse, revisiting this, we're talking a lot about Suzuki, Caufield, but Slav, no one exhibits the characteristics that he's talking about here more than Slav. He stepped up. Laine Hutson was a point per game. Let's be honest here. And of course, Caufield had 3 goals in 5 games. But Juraj Slafkovsky, like Caufield and Suzuki already had that playoff experience. Slafkovsky and our boy Demidov didn't. To get this early in their careers, this early in their development curve, and to see how they were adapting and stepping up in each of their like 3rd, 4th, 5th playoff games of their career, it just has me so excited, especially with a coach like Marty, who is not going to let them fall below that level. I can't wait to see what Slav is going to do with this newfound ability.
For sure. And just getting in the playoffs is found money for Demidov and Hutson. And this is going to help them going forward. For sure, it helps a lot. Like, you already got a great player like Demidov, and you just get him in a situation where you can get a little bit more experience for them. That's going to help for next year. But who I'm really concerned about in all of this, Josh, is our boy Juraj Slafkovsky.
Oh, yeah.
The question is, how do we get him to start on time? And I think us getting to the playoffs, him recognizing what he needed to do and getting there was absolutely huge, because is it fair to say that Slafkovsky can be a point per game type of player next year if he's really started on time? Now, that's going to be a major jump still, getting another 32 points from, his 50 that he had this year. But I think that he can have that type of jump because he's getting most of that production, those 50 points, in that second half, right? Second half Slav is a real thing. So I think just kind of starting on time. But I think, Josh, it's important to even mention, the effects of, Demi and that 2C and, that second line. We talk all the time about how it helps Nick Suzuki. But it's really going to help a certain Juraj Slafkovsky so much in this situation as well to just really kind of get going. But that's the thing about, with Marty's quote about getting into the playoffs is that, it really helps for development. The same is also true. They're going to need to kind of juxtapose that and be able to handle the pressure that'll come, because there's going to be increased expectations from media, right? Don't want to call the kettle black, but, we're going to expect, this team to make the playoffs now going forward. And that's not an expectation that they had last year. So they're going to see how they can kind of balance this going forward. For me, definitely a net positive.
100%. I agree with all that, especially that final point about really needing to come out strong this year, because before it's slow start. We had a bit of one at times. It's okay, we're still young, still rebuilding. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's now a bad slow start is not really going to be acceptable for this team. And again, media, we tend to stay positive, but there's going to be times where it is frustrating if you make the playoffs and you start off cold. Not to say you can't turn it around, just like Montreal did this past year, but when you have that new level of expectation, again, with a guy like Demidov coming in, you have Rookie of the Year Laine Hutson coming in, you have other prospects coming up, you assume you're going to make a move this offseason, touch on some of that in a second. There's going to be some raised expectations, but we know how to handle that pressure now. Our guys, they stepped up in the playoffs. Yvonne looked amazing in games 4 and 5, and I can't wait to see what else is coming. So leave your thoughts on Marty's quote and how it's going to affect our boys down below, because starting next season quick, starting it off hot, especially for our boy Slav. I'm ready for some first half Slav, to be honest, and I can't wait to see it. But another thing, Jesse, you mentioned the second line, right? The second line, we need some depth scoring. That's one of the things that Montreal is really trying to address. And 2C, of course, is the top priority. I think Kent Hughes is looking every single day to see how he can address that. With looked at in New York saying Bo Horvat and Matthew Barzal are staying put, those names are likely off the table, as Matthew Darcy's made it clear they want to contend. So, even though 2C is still the priority, there's been some talk a little bit about the second line winger. Who's going to pair with Ivan Demidov? That's our problem right now. But the number one guy we got to talk about is Patrik Laine. Now, this is a big turning point for Montreal, Jesse, because this is the final year of Patrik Laine's deal. 20 goals in 52 games this year. He had 15 power play goals in those 52 games. You prorate that to an 82-game season, he would have had 23 or 24 power play goals, which would have smoked everyone else in the league by 6 or 7. This guy was a power play merchant, but a power play menace this year. I know he had his down moments. He wasn't playing great in the playoffs. He fractured his hand, all this stuff. Jesse, when we're talking long-term future of Montreal, this is really a prove-it season for Laine. Look, even if he has a 25 goal season over 82 games this year, I don't mind bringing him back if the cap hits right. But I think the question right now is who is the long-term fit on the wing next to Ivan Demidov? We'll get into some other stuff that just came out today in a bit, but do you envision that potentially being Patrik Laine?
It could definitely be, and if he's really committed, I see him just being an amazing player really for this team. And Josh, we are hearing the rumors, right? I think we need to get into right off the bat. Yeah. This is a huge can of worms. There's the Martin H's, but even the more recent rumors from Friedman, right? Of JJ Peterka being there. It's there is the option if we're not able to get that 2C, that maybe we go get that really skilled type of winger. In fact, even Jeff Gordon kind of alluded to it of maybe that's the way that we can go about it on our second line. That being said, Josh, it's I don't think that that's the first play that they want to go to.
No.
Why? They're paying Laine a lot of money, first of all. I think that matters. Yeah. He needs to play in the top 6 to be successful. But most importantly in all this, Josh, they want to do right by Patrik Laine. They made a commitment to him. They said if you come over here, we're going to get your love of hockey back. And that's a two-way street. Definitely Laine needs to do his work on that. But they're going to try and put him just in a position to win as much as possible. So, but that being said, I think that they're not going to wait forever here, right? And if they do see that Laine does have that potential and they see maybe a longer term play, there to kind of help, right? Like they don't want Laine on that third line, which is why I don't think that they're going to go up for that winger this summer here. But I mean, it's interesting all the same, right? Because you don't want to wait. I'm sure there's different voices within the Habs organization that are kind of fighting on either side of this argument. I think it's very relative, very fair to say, but like that being said, like we want to see a full year from Patrik Laine, or at least like a good chunk of it before making a decision, because if he can really play like all zones, he was pro-rated last year, like not just on the power play, but like for his goals to be at 31, about 32, which isn't a bad showing, you know, like over an 82 game season. Just the question is, can he put it all together? It being a contract year, like Josh, I just have that faith. Like just this ideal world where Laine is just lighting it up. Like maybe call me like a hopeless romantic here, but it's like he's like, you know, on like the 5v5, he's playing committed on the power play, he's doing what he does best, but like just a big body, right? Getting on the forecheck, laying some hits, like just how incredible would that be to see? My final question to you, though, Josh, this year with Demidov, I think like Demidov's going to help Laine. Laine's going to help Demidov, but I think Demidov being the playmaker, like he's going to help Laine more than anything else here. Plus or minus 40 goals, Patrik Laine. For the viewers below, let us know as well.
Oh boy. You know, I really want to be hopeless romantic as well. I'm going to take the under because I think Patrik Laine has the capability to score 40 goals. You put him on the power play and you have a menace like Ivan Demidov feeding him one-timers, that could work. But I'm not convinced that they're going to go back to Laine on the PP1. Could they? Should they? Probably, maybe. Like, it's tough to say, right? Like, he was so great on the PP1. But in the playoffs, without him on the PP1, they looked really good as well. I think there's going to be two distinct PP units that could work very well. I don't know if he's going to be on that same power play pace of like 23. If he gets 23 power play goals, it's hard to bet against 40 goals. I'm going to take the under, but I'm going to say 35. Like, I think he could really get 35. And in that case, still absolutely worth bringing back. But I think the person they put down the middle with that line is the biggest question. Whether it's, you know, another addition. Like, yes, you could bring in a guy like JJ Peterka. You could go bring in another star winger. I don't know, Owen Tippett's name's been thrown out there a little bit. I think he plays a bit of center. Or is he more of a winger? I think he's a bit more of a winger. Regardless, like, there's names out there. We have prospects as well that could transition to winger from center. I don't know. But, like, you know, down the middle is the question. If they're playing with Kirby Dach, hey, you know, maybe that could work. Like, you put someone down the middle who's really defensively responsible. I don't know. There's a lot to talk about here, a lot of discussion. What do you guys think? Is Laine the long-term solution, or have we just not seen enough yet? I think this is the turning point year for it. Love to hear from you guys down below. But listen, that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest right now. Leave your over or under 40 goals for Patrik Laine. Fantastic question. Love to see what you all have to say. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you on the next one.